This is Ray with School of Racing Graphics. In this video, I'm going to show you how to modify some racing graphics. These can be your graphics. They can be graphics off my website, srgfx.com. So this isn't going to be a tutorial just based on graphics or assets that are on the website, but something that you could use creating your own graphics moving forward, or just maximizing graphics that you've already created in the past. So when you use Adobe Illustrator, knowing what the tools are and how to use them is super important. So like, for instance, if I told you, go build a house, and then all I gave you was for tools was like a hammer and a saw, you would build the house. It would just take you forever to do it because you wouldn't have all the tools that you would need to get it done quickly. And so we're just going to use some of the tools in Adobe Illustrator to maximize not only our speed in getting a job done, but also in customizing the graphics so that we can use them in more ways than one and use them on multiple projects without it looking like it's a duplicate. So you can see here, I've got graphic 132. I just launched it on the website. It's free for premium members. You can see it here. This is what it looks like on the artboard when it comes out of the box or out of the zip file, I mean. And so I customized it basically to fit this dirt modified wrap. And then I actually included it. Sometimes I just feel generous and I include them right into the file. So if you want that exact layout, it's already in there. It's free for premium members. If you want to get this graphic, just use your monthly coupon. And so over here, if you take a look, you can see how hot and messy it gets when you're trying to lay out a car and put graphics in. So a lot of this video is going to be just experimentation, moving things around, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, just basically getting the most out of this graphics while utilizing tools in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to start by just deleting out just basically all the graphics. So I'm going to select them and delete them. Just get us back to base here. Looks like I'm missing something. There we go. Yeah, I'm missing one of my panels, but that's all right. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these out. And I'm going to move this back down here. Okay, so we got a good solid base. This is a fictional car. All the sponsors, or most of the sponsors, are just made up, except for the contingencies. So hot tip number one, I'm going to tell you really quickly and easily. This is going to not have anything to do with the graphics, but more so to do with how you lay out your contingency sponsors. So you can see here, I have this contingency and it's all grouped together, but you could do this in a way where it's a lot easier to control them if you turn it into a brush. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this, expand appearance, just so that I have them all separate like that. And then I got them all here like this, right? And so typically what you'll end up doing is aligning them all and then distributing them all evenly like that. And then when you bring it in, you're going to align it to the rake of the car, whether it's the top or the bottom, depending on the car and the style of car and all that. But I would offer up, there's a different way to do this. So get them a little closer together. And then in this way, you can control the rake a lot easier if you do it this way. And it's not going to work for every single contingency line that you do, but it's a useful thing for the bottoms of doors or when you're lining up long rows of sponsors. So I'm just going to take this. Now there can't be any gradients in it, and that's the downside to it because we're going to turn it into a brush. So you can see it over here. It already is a brush. And so I'm going to just drag and drop this over here into art brush. I'm going to click art brush and click OK. And then you can see it becomes an art brush, and it says I'm going to stretch to fit stroke length. I think I don't want to do that. I think I want to hit scale proportionately or proportionately. Okay. And so now what I can do is make a line and then apply that to it. And then no matter how big or small I make it, they all size up with it. And I can tilt it based on the angle of the car without going in and adjusting them individually or making it so that once I've turned it, the 2.3 degrees or whatever, then I got to memorize my number. Oh, if I want to get that back level, I need to turn it back to negative 2.3 or whatever the degrees are. In this way, you can just select the 2 points and select a third point, I believe. Yeah, it's a little bit of a hack here. So I'm just making a third piece here. And so I'm going to select this point and align it, and then select this point and that point and align it. And now I'm back to 0. So just a little bit more flexibility with your contingency sponsors and when you want to put them on the car and how you want to lay them out. Again, it wouldn't work for, when you do like a stack of like 4 or 5, like if you look at some of the dirt late models that have like just tons of contingencies on their back quarter panel, things like that. All right, so that's tip number 1. All right, now getting back into the actual graphic side of things. Actually, I'm just going to slide that back down in there, like so. Like that. And I get a little bit sloppy lately with my contingencies. I'm just trying to get the card done, so I'm not really thinking too much about it. I probably should like resize these and get them a little bit more proportionate to each other, but they're good for now in this video. Again, if you guys have any questions while I'm going, feel free to ask. You can just hit me up in the comments and I will do my best to answer your questions. All right, so now we're going to go back to the graphic. How do I get the most out of this? So the first graphic that I created was basically this one. Everything else that you see on here is some kind of modification of this original graphic. So the first thing I want to show you is basically the same thing that I just showed you with the contingency panel. So I'm going to bring this in here. It's going to be super small because this is a life-size panel. Okay. And what I want to do is, even if I don't want to customize it, I just want to use it out of the box, I can try just taking it and popping it down here and sliding it in, which is never my favorite thing to do. I always like to modify it, move it around and do things to it that make it fit each design. So that it gives it a little bit more of a custom look. But right now I'm just throwing these in. And a lot of the details end up lost when I don't have the ability to modify because they're going behind sponsors and behind contingencies. And so I'll experiment and move things around. Like for instance, if I was going to move this here, I would want to break this to solid red before it hit the top, just to make it, one, easy for the wrap installer, and so that the design kind of ended or resolved nicely at the top. So I'll go into that in a little bit here. I'll go into that here in a little bit on how I do that and the best practice for doing that. So you can see, though, you just move it around and just kind of see, where does it fit? So like, for instance, there's a lot of open space here, negative space on the wrap. So getting some of those details in that spot makes sense. I never like it having a graphic where all the points or the resolved points are getting covered up by something. So I like them to like come out. So like you got one here, you got one there. So that's kind of, it shows the aggressiveness of the graphic. Or even like sometimes I see guys, they use graphics similar to this and they take the graphic and they just throw it in and they hide the point behind the number, where really you just take it and bring it out a little bit and you can get a lot more you can get a lot more attitude out of the graphic just by getting the point to be displayed. Okay, so that's the most basic way of using the graphics. That's the way a lot of people use our graphics, is they just take them and slide them in. And I don't mind that. I just highly recommend going through a little bit of a process to customize them so it's not so obvious that you're using an sRGFX graphic. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, start over. I'm going to get back to 90. Add to the swatches, stretch this guy up, and I'm going to give him flip it to the horizontally, and like that. Okay, so this is now the front. So one of the things we can do is similar to what we just did with these contingencies, is we can just drop it in and make it an art brush. Okay, so I want to make it an art brush. And it says it contains gradients. That's the problem there. It's not telling me that it's gradients, but I know from time using this software that that's exactly what the problem is. So I'm going to go to my swatches and I'm going to turn this gradient piece, I'm going to turn it just into a flat color. So now I've got just flat colors and it'll let me drop it on there. And if I want the gradient back, I can get it back after I modify my shapes. So I don't have to just not use gradients. I just can't use them for this part of the design process. So I'm going to drop it on here. Then I want it to be an art brush. And it's giving me all these options. You can flip it along the path both ways. And it'll show you, or once it's on the path, if you come back in and modify this, it'll modify it on the path. So I'll show you really quick. So now we got it as a brush. And you can make almost all graphics into a brush. And that's why I always try to create a bottom and a top and sides to the graphics with no flat cutoffs, because flat cutoffs are easy to make. Once you have a graphic, you just throw it on there and then resolve it in the middle. I'm going to do it in this video, but so I don't like to include that. Even if the bottom is going to be sloppy or not exactly perfect or awesome, at least it's completed so that there's options to use it. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab this and throw it on here. And I want to scale proportionately. I don't want it to be stretched to fit. So I want it to be the graphic that I created. And so now you can see we got it on a brush or on a path. And let's say I want to create another one. Okay. And so what it'll do now is I have it on both of those. And if I double click this brush again, and I say, no, I want to flip it the other way, see how it automatically flipped it on both of them because I have it live on the brush. Okay, so now I can come back in here and edit. I can say, no, I want it to go that direction instead. And all that depends on if the line is vertical, horizontal. I can still stretch it to fit. I don't want to do that. There's another option here, stretch between guides. It's a little bit more complicated. I'm not going to explain that now. So we're just going to pick scale proportionately. And then with it scaling proportionately, I can also fix the width of it. You can go through these options and see that there's a lot of different things you can do there. Some of those options lean more into like drawing with a pen tool. And so not all of them are beneficial in every scenario. Okay, so now that I have it on a path, now what I can do is I can bring it down to my car, and I always am trying to consider the scale that I'm working in. I don't like my graphics to appear too small, like they're little fragments, depending on the graphic. So like if I do that, that just seems a little bit too small to me. The pieces are too small. And I actually bring that in like that. If I just grab one point, it keeps the scale proportional. So I try to choose my scale based on the graphics that are there and what I want visible. So if I bring that up, you can start seeing how the point, there's a point here, there's a point there. So I like that. And this is what I call it's kind of a random graphic. It's not meant to be super clean. It's not meant to be streamlined. It's not meant to be simple. So it gets sloppy, it gets messy. And that's the intention of it. It's not meant to be this perfect little thing where every little corner is worked out perfectly. And so if you're not familiar with doing this style, I recommend getting familiar with doing that style of graphic. I know a lot of guys they're like, my style is this. And it's like, you need to have a robust tool belt, meaning your abilities in design have to be, complex, or nah, that's not exactly the word. You need to be able to have multiple options. You can't be a one-hit wonder guy and just like, I do this style of graphic, or I do this style of graphic, or I do like this, or I don't like that. Your clients are all going to like something different. And so you want to be able to lean into what it is that they like, even if it's a style that you're not comfortable with. So now that I've done that, I can take this and I can start bending it because it's on a path. So just like a path now, the graphic can start being bent. And so I can start doing some crazier stuff with it to get it to fit into the area, into the blank areas of the car, and not be so hidden behind the numbers and sponsors and things like that. So, and that's really what I want. I want the graphic to be visible, but I don't want it to take over. I don't want it to be the only thing that is seen. And so that's why I have it as not the brightest color or brightest contrast on the car. So now I can take it and move this here. But you can see by having it on the path, it gives me a lot more flexibility to get it to work itself into the car instead of just mashing the flat graphic, meaning this one, it's just one shape. So it's just going to have to be wherever I put it. Now I've got a lot of flexibility with it. And then I can take and I can duplicate this brush. So I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to click the second one. I'm going to flip it the other way. Well, I don't want to do that. Got to take the duplicate one. That's this one. I'm going to flip it the other way. And then I'm going to select this guy and select that brush. And now this one's flipped the other way. Instead of having the same graphic going the same way over the top like that. And then bring it to a place where the points resolve somewhere on the car if I can, if that could be helped. Sometimes it can't be. So you can see here that, and I'm operating under the mode that I'm not going to move my sponsors and numbers, that they are in place. And so everything now has to just basically be subservient to the choices that I made with my number and sponsor. And so on some cars, like, dirt late models or sprint cars or whatever, it's going to be different. You're going to have different types of choices, and it's going to lay out differently. Now you can see I can start moving these things into place. And again, it's similar to my previous design in that it's like really rough. It's got a lot of, just unpredictability to it, but there's a general flow, and that's what's important. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit save, go over to my dirt modified template, and I'm going to update the file. And now you can see, so we got a totally different kind of ripped, grungy, horror, metal, death metal kind of a look. That's kind of the look that I was going for. There's more that I could do to it in that way. So I'm going to just kind of play with it more. And this is all experimentation. Anybody who tells you that like the very first time that they open up the file and design anything, they've like landed on it. I sometimes like to, I'll be designing and just take a break, walk away, and then I come back and I immediately see like, oh, I could see what I was doing wrong. Sometimes you just get so locked into what you're doing that it's hard to recognize on the screen what you're doing wrong or what doesn't look right until you walk away and go eat a sandwich and come back and you're like, oh, that's why this looks like crap. And you see it from taking a break from it. So sometimes I do that, but I do a lot of experimentation, moving stuff around, deleting stuff, changing colors. I delete just as much as I add. And I just keep going through until I land on something that I like. And sometimes it's just an internal conviction. It's just something that I feel. And I'm like, that's right. What I've done here is right. I'm not saying that it's the best or it's the best that it could be, but it's like I'm at peace with the way that this design is turning out. So right now I'm just kind of throwing options in and throwing things at the design and just kind of experimenting, things like that. So now I'll go back. I always like to see what it's going to look like on the template. This is auto updating. It's the ultimate dirt modified template, so it auto updates. So, like one thing I would clean up, I wouldn't let just these little graphic things hit the pillar like that. I would clean that kind of stuff out. But I got my graphic, I think, in the general spot that I want it, or in kind of how I like it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I see this little blank spot here and it's kind of open, but there aren't any other really spots like that except for maybe right here. The spoiler should technically just be off. I don't need that on the modified. Turn that off, just distracting me a little there. But you can see, so now we got this black space. And if I want the consistency, I'm going to start filling it in. I can fill it in a little bit on the nose. Maybe let it resolve on the nose a little bit differently. So I'll take this guy here. And I'm just going to cut him, put a cut in it, delete that out. And then, oops. Group it together, group it back together, and just give it a little resolve, something like that. And so once you start cutting smaller pieces off, then you can start adding it in places. So it doesn't seem like really the way that I set the graphic up, even on the brush. Like that fills in pretty nice right there. And if I bring this up, then it'll allow me to bring something under it. And then there's one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do something completely different. One, the colors are easy to change. So the colors to me are always irrelevant. Like if I pack a graphic pack with a red graphic, I don't care that it's red. To me, it could be purple, green, blue, orange. It doesn't really matter because it can be changed so easily. I go with whatever felt good while I was creating the design of the car. So when I created this design and it was tribal or a tribal kind of, I call it a dragon spine is what I named it, the style of it. But, it just suits itself to being red and black. So the graphic kind of fits nice right there into the sponsor. That was unintentional, but it worked out. And so then even like filling in this kind of thing here, just, figuring out where things fit, where they don't. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save on that, take one more look. It's probably not finalized. I would make a lot more adjustments on it. But you can see, I would move that around, maybe add a little more up here, fill in just some of these blank spots. But you can see it's got that overall aggressive look. It almost looks like flames a little bit, which is also kind of cool. I like flames. I know some people don't like flames. I know some people don't like tribal. I just say like what you like. I get people all the time. They're like, I don't like that style of graphic. Don't create that style of graphics. Like, I'm going to do what I like doing. I'm not going to let people tell me what to do unless it's the client, you know? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those out, and we're going to go a totally different way. And this time I'm going to change the colors. And this is one of the things that I wanted to show you that I actually think is more powerful. And you need to learn how to do this if you don't know how to do it already. But like learning, you got multiple graphics sitting here. It's not just one graphic. I could cut this one piece off and use it if I'm clever enough with it, right? Just being a little bit patient. So even if I take this guy here, now that's my graphic, right? Or taking, you know, this here and cutting this off and flipping it around, and like that becomes my graphic, right? It's like I don't need all the pieces to be my graphic, just something that gives an aggressive vibe. So now I come over here with it. This isn't actually the thing that I said I was going to show you, but I wanted to throw this out there. And now I've got this kind of like random, aggressive looking, like edgy, really thick, fat graphic that it looks kind of neat, you know? And if I change the color down here and change the color up here, I got quite a few different things going on. I could just move this point, bring it, drag it like that. Now I got that point there. And then, you know, if I turn the car a different color, I'm not going to do all that right now, but you get the idea. So there's all kinds of different things, or it starts your next idea. Even if you cut it up and throw it in, it starts out your next idea. You're like, oh, this gives me an idea for something else. So one of the things I like to do whenever I have a graphic like this, which most of the graphics on the website are like this, where there's a top and a bottom to them, is I like there to be a solidness to the top and a solid block to the bottom. I don't include them because they're so easy to create that you just need to know how to create them. Because once I do include them too, people think that the graphic is limited. And so I would rather it be just, you have all the options and you can kind of see them. So I'll bring this almost all the way to the edge of the graphic on the front, almost all the way to the edge on the back. And then I'm going to take this guy here and I'm going to inset it like just like a fraction of a pixel. So like negative 0.2 pixels, like something super small. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it black just so I know that it's there, bring it to the top. And then I'm going to knock it out of the green. Okay. I make sure that the black goes beyond the green on both sides. So, and I'll show you why here in a minute, which over here it doesn't. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. Just like that. Okay. And now by doing that, I'm going to go ahead and take this and knock it out. And now I have a top and a bottom to my graphic. So I can do this. I can send that to back, and I can send that to back. And with my graphic now, I can have a different color on the bottom and a different color on the top. Or I can take this and I can bring it to the top and turn it orange. And now my graphic just becomes a top graphic without the bottom side of it. And so it just gives you all these different dynamic options that you wouldn't have had if you didn't just knock it out. So I'll take that guy out of there for now. I'm going to take this drop shadow out of here for now. I'm actually even going to take this gradient out of here for now. And then I'll just take these guys here. And I actually don't even need this one because this is just going to be background color to car. And now I have this graphic here. What I will do though is duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate that. And now I have this. And I have, whoops, yep, got that. And then I have this guy here. Now you see what happens? You end up with a whole nother graphic right here in the middle. Now you got a whole different thing going on again, just by making a few modifications, okay? So now I'm gonna take this guy here and I'm gonna group it together. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and weld it. I call it welding, it's combining paths. Do the same thing there on the top guy. And now what I'm going to do is, let's say we're wanting to do a blue and white car or something like that. So I'm going to turn this white. It's just going to be a totally different vibe. When I do white on my previews, I actually don't do exactly white. I do like an off-white a little bit, just because it helps with the preview to not look too bright and blow out. So I'm going to bring this up to like 5% black, 6% black, like that. It'll look white in the design. I would say if you're an iRacing designer, do the same thing. Don't ever turn your wraps all the way white or all the way black. Back them down just a little bit to give it more of a realistic feel. And so I'm going to add swatches. And now what I'm going to do is just bring this in like this. And I have the luxury of duplicating it or not just using it just once, right? Because really the cool part of the graphic is that middle part. This part right here is kind of the neatest part. So I could bring it up here. See, a lot of it gets hidden. It ends up hidden behind the different elements. So one thing you can actually do in this style of graphic is you can just squeeze it down, and for a second to you it'll look squeezed because you've been looking at it one way for so long. But the reality is if I just sent it just like that, you wouldn't know the difference, right? So it's not a letter or a number, so squeezing it is a good option. So I'm going to go ahead and just add that there. And we can add another one in here, or I can cut it. And again, I can do the same thing with this. I could turn it into an art brush. So I'm going to drag it over, turn it into an art brush, and do all the same things, scale proportionately. Now I have the option. I'm going to go ahead and throw that there, and we got to get that flipped. But that looks pretty cool, even just like that, right? And now I can scale it down. Like so. Whatever I do, I'm always trying to do work it out where the color is resolving to a plastic that's available, if that makes sense. Now that's not always the case. You can't always do that, but a lot of times you can, and it's better too. It just makes the whole design resolve better if whatever I'm doing on the bottom resolves to a plastic that's available. So I can bend this guy like that. I could just make it so the top, so it's like that, and then flip this 180 like that. Something like that. And then I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm going to save it and see. So I dig that. I think I would want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring the graphic down just a little bit. I do like these elements all showing up here, but I think I want some of these elements to end up back here a little bit more, just to give the whole design a little bit more of an attitude. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this guy back here like that. You can see that point ends up working out. Now the struggle that I'm going to have is that my graphic is the same color as my sponsors and numbers, which means my contrast in my design is going to go way down. So the nice thick outlines on it really help. And that's the way that you want to go with that, is always use nice thick outlines. So now I'm going to turn this guy here blue. So we're just going to turn it a basic blue color. I'm not doing anything official here. So, assuming I'm getting close to that Pepsi blue plastic color. And I'm always a big fan of not having to do things in total black. So sometimes I'll just take my black and I'll turn it into a shade of whatever the main color is on the car. So in this case, it's going to be blue. So I'm going to just bring it to CMYK. It doesn't actually convert it to CMYK. It just lets me adjust it like it's a CMYK color. And so I'm going to bring that like that. And it's still super dark. Almost looks black, but it's more of a blue. Like that. There. That. And then once I get my graphic in a spot where I'm comfortable with it, I'll set these to outlines. Expand appearance. So now I've expanded the appearance, and you can see what Illustrator does is it adds a ton of dots to it, things that are not necessary. You can just always go to Object, Path, Simplify, and it'll basically get your graphic right back to the point that it was before you turned it into a brush. You can go into your options here, and it shows you the point count. So it's going to bring it down from 208 points to 79. That's going to save on your graphic size file, and it's going to keep your graphic on your file size, and it's also going to keep your graphic a lot more editable. So when we want to go back in and start doing things to it, I can edit it without it being a massive problem with having to adjust a bunch of little points. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I could have done them both at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Even if you take the simplify tool and you maximize it out, it's still going to bring it down 310, and it brought it down to 106. So you're hardly losing any of your original shape, and just going through and simplifying really makes things a lot easier. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I'm determining right now, is this working? Is what I'm doing working? Is it even, or is it kind of pointless? So I can see the attitude of the graphic, and that's what's important to me. Like if I just got random crap happening back there, that doesn't always make sense. It actually has to like make some form of sense. So I got a point here. There's a point being hidden behind Longhorn. So I would consider moving the Longhorn around, or moving the point around one way or the other, or maybe moving this up. Something like that. But then it brings my blue down a little bit. So maybe getting rid of this here makes sense. And just having a half tone, a bottom, I call it a bottom half graphic, which those cars always look nice. They always stand out most at the track. They don't have a lot going on them. I mean, the graphic hardly has anything here. You can see it. But it really stands out at the track because everything is bold and really colorful. So I'm going to go back, take a look. Now you can see it. So now I can experiment with my plastics and start looking at how I want that to lay out. As far as, I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to grab my white color like that, and make sure they're named. I'm just going to call this one the Pepsi Blue, since that's what the color is typically called. No, it's not the official swatch for that, so don't ask for it. I'm just making it up as I go. White's already used, so I'm going to call this one off-white. Okay, then I'm just going to copy these, bring them over to my Ultimate Modified template. That's going to add those two swatches, should automatically to my swatch board, and now I can start playing around with my plastic colors and my body panel colors. And so you can see some of the hooks and loops are getting hidden. I'm going to show you how I would resolve that. But overall, I'm really satisfied with the way that looks. But I want to clean it up. I want this design to be even more streamlined, even cleaner. So a little less color maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and take this guy here, which is the off-white color, and I'm going to turn my plastic that color. And this is going to turn it into a really clean looking car. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and take, I want my hood sides, deck, visor, driver guard, roof, spoiler, doors and quarters, spoiler fin. I know it's in here. Here it is. Hood, nose sides, roof sides. Here we go. At some point, it's going to change. I know it is. There it is. Okay, so now that's blue. I did color on this, on my previous design. I colored the back side of the templates red, so you could do that if you want on that template. Doors and quarters. Let's see. I already changed it. Okay. And then I experiment with the wheel color, and typically the wheel color is just going to be whatever the client has. So if the client has black wheels, which a lot of guys do, just keep them black. So in this case, I'll turn them black for now. I always try to tell guys that your wheel color is just as much a part of the design as your. It didn't change. Oh, I see. Yeah, I have my my rasterized wheels. I must have deleted the other ones out. I deleted them out. I deleted the customized ones out to get the blurred ones in. There you go. So there's that one. The other one, it looks like I deleted out. So I could just take this guy. gonna get there. All right. I'm not gonna customize my wheel labels. Meaning I'm not gonna turn them. I'm just getting the tire in the spot. I can mess with that later if I want to. That. So that's good enough. Tuck that up just a little bit to fit the shadow. I kind of had the car in the stance of like coming out of the corner where all the lean is on the right side of the car. Okay, so now you can see the direction I'm going here. Now, if I wanted them to be white on the template, I could just bring down all the tones of the tire. So I'm going to bring this here. Looks like I actually had my back panels mixed with my my wheel color. There, now we got the white wheels. And I kind of like, I'm kind of digging it. I would play with it more depending on the client and the colors of their car and what they wanted basically, depending on their wheel color, their plastic color, and all that kind of a thing. So I'm going to go back and modify the graphic a little bit more to get a little bit more attitude. And your attitude doesn't always, or those extra details, they don't always. How's it going, Simplicity Design? It's good to see you, man. I'm glad you're watching. If you got any questions, man, just let me know. We'll be glad to help you out. So if you want to add more details, I think the biggest mistake that designers make is that they want to add details and then they want every detail to be the most prominent detail. And you just don't need to think that way. Okay. So for instance, I'm going to take this graphic here and I'm going to make more out of it. We could do another thing where, like, let's say we wanted to bring a little bit of orange into the car. Just duplicate that guy. And because I have it a nice clean, like it's all completed graphic at the top, we could just size it down a little bit, bring it back there like that, do some other things, bring some other points in like that, maybe bring it this direction so that the 2 points don't look similar, and then throw another one down there like that, right? And then I can thicken up the orange on my 32, get rid of that gold. Maybe something like that. Maybe that's too thick, but like that. Keeping it nice and bold. I can go through all the different graphics and do that and just mess with it in that way. All right, so I'm going to go back and save it. And now you can see we're a far cry from what we started with, right? And then what we're ending with, it's a very different style. Obviously, I would clean that orange that I just accidentally put on the side of the hood. I would resolve it down here. Maybe play with the roll cage color if the client had a different roll cage, like an orange roll cage or something like that. All of those different things. Sorry, I got something in my nose here. And I don't have tissues around. All of those different pieces of the design work into the overall flow and overall presentation of a car. So it's the wheel color, it's the plastic colors, it's the roll cage color, it's the panel color, it's the inside of the panel color, it's the plastic color on the hood scoop. All of those different things. You want to tell your client, like, hey, if you're doing this, like maybe your deck color should be orange instead of a black one, because that car is going to stand out more on the track, or a white deck. It's just going to stand out just by having the contrast there. Because a lot of times you can get away with, using two tones or two colors in the background of a car that are similar in saturation and tone. So like red and blue are not going to clash with a white or yellow number, and the yellow and the white number is going to stand out the most. But as soon as you start introducing white in your background graphic, you need to make sure that your strokes are really thick if your number is going to be really white. So I'm always very wary to put a lot of background graphics in that are the same color as my numbers and sponsors, because then it creates a contrast issue where it's like your eye is wrestling between, do I read the number and sponsor, or am I looking at the graphic? And everything kind of becomes a mess. So like, for instance, one of the things I would do now that I've committed to making this white graphic on this car, I would move it down a little bit so it's below the sail panel, so there's nothing up on the sail panel. One, that's gonna save on material to not have to print that little sliver. Two, just bringing it down, and then the tape tats, that's gonna only, I'm probably going to turn that the dark blue color and let it not have an outline and just sit on the white and be really bold. So that, because that's what puts it in the best possible case scenario to be read. So you got to know when you're working through something, if you're creating the highest amount of contrast possible. And sometimes you just got to go with what's available. But other times you got to think it through in a way. So the 32 is split. The number is split between blue and white. So do I pick, should the number be blue, or should the number be white? Or should the number be orange with a big fat white outline? Those are things that I would experiment through as I was going. And then whatever one I chose, I would make that theme follow throughout all the main sponsors of the car, so that it all worked together and it all worked in unison. So you kind of create your dominant style and then go from there. So let's go ahead and duplicate this guy here. And I'm just going to take this, and we're going to take this fill. We're going to turn it the red color or orange color. I got all these little guys in here because they are there to fill in gaps. Okay. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn that. I'm going to bring another blue in, actually. So I'm going to duplicate this blue and turn it that one. And I'm going to just give us a lighter blue. I always like working in shades, not just one color. And that's another mistake that I see a lot of designers make, is that like they bring blue into their design, but then they're like so committed to one color blue. And you don't need to do that. You could actually just bring in 2 or 3 tones, and it'll really help you have a more dynamic look. Something like that. And now when I bring that down here, to me, it looks like it's got less contrast. Now, if that's going to be fluorescent orange, it would actually have a ton of contrast, but not if the number is white, if the number is black or dark blue, like we have had the car set up before. So if this was going to be fluorescent orange, I would clean this up a little bit. But if this was going to be fluorescent orange, this would end up having a ton of contrast, and it matches the orange coming through. And then I would just get rid of probably that stroke on the outside, that dark stroke. Let me see where that's coming from. Oh, I think I have it in the group, or on the, there it is. So get rid of that, and move that to the side. And you can kind of see that starts having a look. But then I need to commit. Okay, I'm going to do that over here to that sponsor. I might do something similar to this sponsor. But I wouldn't do that if that's not fluorescent orange. If that's going to be printed orange, don't do that, because it'll look muddy. It won't pop the way you think it will. But fluorescent orange will make it so that it all pops off really, really hard. I see what you're saying, Oz. Let me see. Can I make sail panels on this template start further back so it looks more like an IMCA? So I'm going to make an IMCA style car. It'll be a totally different template. So this is going to be the UMP one, and then there'll be an IMCA one. Because I know that the body styles are actually totally different. The IMCA ones are more square and a little bit more similar on both sides, where the UMP style is just so different on both sides, and just overall the car is just way more bent. So that, yeah, there'll just be another style. But you could, if you wanted to take this template and adjust the sail panels, you could do that in this one here. So I'm not going to explain it in this video, but essentially all the sail panels, the lighting on them, you have to adjust 3 panels. And I'm going to show you how to do it, so it's a little bit easier than what I'm showing you there, but it can be done. Anyway, all right, so going back here. So I'm going to stick with what I previously had. The other thing that I could do is make the commitment to go the white color and then go the dark color, which is probably going to show quite a bit of contrast. Let's see here. Like that. And get rid of this stroke here. That. So I think that actually stands out really well. That final stroke though bothers me a little bit. So I would take it and probably turn it into something like a really, really light gray or something like that. Or just get rid of it altogether and have something like that. You can kind of see, okay? And I actually think that stands out really well. And then I could take that style and shrink it down a little bit. And then I want to see, I got a little bit of brokenness in here. I want to see why. I'm going to get rid of that inside stroke. There we go. And ungroup it. So do something a little more like that. And so now we got, see how it's kind of getting a lot more solid there. Same thing with this deadlock one. Each one is going to require a little bit of work as I go through them. I don't know that I want to commit to doing all that in the video, but you get the basic idea. Now I'm going to go over here, take a look. And this only auto updates if you're in Adobe Illustrator. If you're in Flexi or anything else like that, it's not going to do that. You have to manually add the design in as the traditional way to do it. All right, so one more thing. I'm just going to bring a little bit more versatility or a little bit more dynamics to this design. So I could, now that I brought this orange in, I could turn it black, try it that way. Just brings a little bit more of the darkness to it. Even if I did this, or I turn this gray, see it kind of, it totally changes the whole vibe to the design and just makes it feel totally different than what it had originally started with. So there's a lot of versatility within all the graphics that are on the site, but you have a lot of versatility in your own graphics that you create if you think of it the right way. You got to just think through how to modify them, how to change them, and how to work through them. Just want to make sure I got a couple people commenting. I want to make sure I got it all. Yep, we're good. So I'll go back to the blue. So then we could take this guy, which was, I think, the top one, or both these the same. Yeah, both of these are the same. So I want something a little bit different now. So I'll grab that. And I could again make this into, I could put it in into a brush and give it a little bit more flexibility. I don't know that I'm digging it totally, but there's definitely some options there. I'm going to go 1/4 inch. Whoops, not 25 inches, 1/4 inch. There we go. And now you can see I'm bringing in some other details. And again, it's just a graphic. It's not numbers or letters, so I can squeeze it down. Not too big of a deal, just to kind of get that detail in there. That. And then it just needs to be a little bit more of that Pepsi blue. Closer to the Pepsi blue. I just wanted a little bit lighter. And that's the mistake I was talking about designers making, is like they get that design, that little thing in there that looks cool, and then they turn it white. You know, it's like it doesn't really need to be white. It needs to be there if you want it to kind of add a dimension, but it doesn't need to be white, because then it starts detracting from what's going on in the rest of the car. So I am gonna take just a minute here. I'll switch out the rest of the sponsors, get a final look at this car, and wrap up the video. Clear appearance. What am I doing here? There we go. One other thing is, when you're working in your appearance panel, which I work in a lot in an Illustrator, is you can order your fills and strokes, so you could pull them around and get them, you know, in the order that you want. I always prefer, if I have a stroke, that it be on the bottom, because in previews and in distance, the stroke actually squeezes the fill a little bit just in the preview, and looks a little bit strange. That. Okay, now I got this. And all you got to do is take this guy, make sure scale, strokes, and effects is on. You can do that like right here, scale, strokes, and effects. And now all my strokes and effects scale when I'm sizing this. And then I can just scale it down until I get it where I want it, and drag and drop it here, and then pop that on there. And now that's a little bit smaller, so that's a little too small. So I'm going to do it again. This time I'm going to hold down Option to replace the first one, and see it automatically updated on there like that. And then I'll move this guy down just a little bit. And then I always fill these little spots in, because they are unnecessary contrast in your design. You don't need that there. It's not helpful. It's just making it look like there's more spots, more additional pieces to the letter. There's cleaner ways to do that. I just did it with the pen tool. You could clean this out too and clean that out. I won't do that in the video. You guys hopefully know about cleanup work. If not, someday I'll make a video about it. And then black and orange, if this is not fluorescent orange, not a good idea to have orange actually set to the outside, because it's just going to make it blobby looking. So I'll just take that, set it to the inside, and then I will bring that to the top, and then bring it down to 0.125 inches. You don't even need to really do that. We could just get rid of it, because we just need it to be actually super readable. So we either need it black, or we need it to be the reddish orange color, which I'll just do that, because I like my colors to be consistent throughout, if it could be helped. If I don't have the luxury to change my designs or my the colors of logos, then I leave it as is. But if I have the luxury to change it, then I will. I'll make it work throughout. This is pretty bold, so I'm going to set this stroke to the center, and then bring it to the top like that, and then turn it down to 1/8 of an inch. Just enough to get the color in there. I don't want the gaps closing up. I want the letters to be super solid. Okay, so you can kind of see there. Now we just gotta probably move this guy around up here. That. And that. select same is like a really dynamic tool. I recommend getting familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, select same, fill color. That, it went through and selected them, all my little pieces. I hate it when the stroke is selected first. Okay, like that. Get this one selected too. And we'll just clean all this up. And one of the ways you can clean it up is just increase the style size. So I could just duplicate this guy, size it up some, and drag and drop it on here. And then do that. That helps close it up. I don't want to sit here throughout this whole video and just clean up a logo. That's not riveting necessarily. So I'll just pick this little spot here, and then that'll be it for now. So like in a logo like this is another mistake I see designers make. It doesn't actually need a stroke. If the logo didn't come with a stroke, there's no need for it. It's just sitting on a solid color. It's white sitting on blue. Might as well just ditch that, right? Don't really need it. Same with this Longhorn logo. Like right now, it's got this big red outline on it. It probably is going to need something because it's going to break into that white. But if it's going to need something, let's just make it the background color, right? So that it doesn't gum up the works a whole bunch. This point becomes unnecessary because it's so small. And so that, see how much that just kind of cleans it up a little bit. We could even bring down the path that's offset on it. That's too much. That. And then I would fill that little dot there, and that would be good. And I'd be good with that. Okay. And this will be the last time. I'm just going to save it. And let's see. Let's delete some of this stuff. We don't need it. I always go through at the end after I'm done with a design, and I know that I've made my final decisions, and I cut pieces off that make the work sloppy and increase file size. It's just a good part of your workflow to do that. And then, you know, if you got the graphic that is more universal, like the one we started with, keep that in a separate file. You can always get back to it if you need it, but don't let your files get out of control. It's just a good practice to keep them nice and clean. Do that. And then too, if you're, you know, freelance designer, especially if you're working as a freelance designer, you're working for somebody who's printing your files, they don't appreciate all your garbage that's laying around in your file. So I will smoke this guy, get rid of him. And again, we don't need that outline. Outlines are overrated when you got solid on solid. You just don't need them. They actually make it worse, not better. Really the only reason for an outline in most cases is to break through a bunch of things happening in the background. So even this Deadlock Pro Tool sales, it really doesn't actually need an outline because it could just sit as white on there and look just as bold. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to go ahead and adjust that now, but you get the basic idea. When you go and you look at like one of the things I appreciate, I went to an IndyCar race in Wisconsin, and all of the Indy cars, man, all of their designers are just so streamlined. It's so all the cars are really pretty. They're really cool looking. And they use that basic practice. We need it more in the dirt world. It's just good to have a good, clean logo on a good, solid color. It makes sense. It makes it readable. It makes it easy to understand. We do too many outlines in the dirt world, and we've got to like get over it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Sorry, that was a little sermon there. I was preaching a little bit there. And so I come back here and I look at it, and it's okay. There's still some things that I would make adjustments on. I'm not going to keep going because this video would get really long, because I'm always willing to experiment until I get it to a place where I'm super comfortable with it. But you get the basic idea. There's a lot of versatility in your graphics. There's a lot of versatility in our graphics. I can do that same exact thing with this loop graphic here. Make it solid on the bottom. Then this is looping in on the top. Then you throw it into the design. Everything works really good. Everything looks really nice. And so you kind of get the basic idea. So if you guys have any questions or you want to know more about how to modify the graphics, change the colors, more about modifying graphics in your favorite design software. If you're working in Flexi, CorelDRAW, Inkscape, Affinity Designer, all of our graphics work in those design software. We save files specifically for CorelDRAW, and we save files specifically for FlexiSign. I actually go in and I clean them up so that when you open them, they will work. It's not just an Illustrator file saved. It's actually a cleaned up file ready to go for Flexi users. Affinity Designer, your best bet. Open up the PDF file or open up the AI file. Those are the best ones. Those are the most streamlined files for Affinity designers. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up on the support page. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. If there's anything in the video that you want covered, also hit me up on the support page. I'll be glad to put together some kind of a tutorial and work through some things that would make your design process easier. Thanks again, guys.